Hey everybody, welcome to The Realistic Prepper. This is our third show. We've gotten some complaints and I'm not really happy with the audio, so we're trying to get that worked out. We're having all kinds of technical difficulties. For those that have never tried to do a podcast or any type of a live stream or a show or a video, you really can't appreciate the technical difficulties and the challenges is that they just go into just trying to communicate with one another over FaceTime. It seems like every time we try to start recording, it's one thing after another, and it's an internet issue, and it's a connection problem. So we're going to try to get through this without incident, but if there are any little hiccups, I'm going to try to edit those out as best I can. And I really appreciate all the support on Facebook and our account. I mean, all the views, everything helps. Guys, don't be afraid to email us if you have any questions that you think we might be able to answer for you. Don't be afraid to shoot us an email, and that link's going to be down in the description below. That'll give you our email, our Facebook links, and if you have any questions, if you don't want to email us, just post it on our Facebook, and we'll try to get back to you. And if it's what we deem to be a good enough topic or something we can really expound on, we'll actually have a show about it. So what we'd like to talk about today is food storage, and this is a subject that David and I we really see eye to eye on this for the most part. It's obvious we both like to eat, so I mean we're Southern boys, so we both like to eat, and I think food storage, the way a lot of people do it is maybe a little extreme or maybe a little backward, I think. And well, what are your thoughts on it, Dave? Just first thoughts on it.
Yeah, and again, we're taking this whole realistic approach here. So, what would the average person who would call themselves a prepper watching this video, what would we say to them as far as how to get started? Watching, doomsday preppers, or if you're watching some of the YouTube videos, you might think you need to start, doing a seed bank and having, an abundance of frozen food or dehydrated food. That's
Right,
not the case.
right.
Really, mine, and we'll expand on in this podcast, my food storage is in three prongs. It's what I eat every day, and we buy in bulk, canned food storage, and some moderately based dehydrated food. And I just have a three-tier approach that I take to my food storage. I don't do seed banks. I don't have rooms full of food. And we'll expand upon why that is as we get here to the podcast.
Right. Well, I agree with you, and I think people get prepping confused with homesteading sometimes, and they can be they can feed off one another. True enough, but homesteading is kind of it's a whole different thing, and it doesn't really apply to people that are in our living circumstances. If you're in a densely populated area or you live in a suburb like I do, the idea of homesteading, it's a nice thought and it's a nice theory, but unless you live out in a cabin 10 miles away from your nearest neighbor, it's not really a viable solution. And I think that's where your seed banks and stuff like that would come in. I don't really see that as a viable alternative, and that would be what I would consider extreme long term. If you're putting back seeds, that would be extreme long term. In a SHTF situation, that goes beyond that into an Armageddon type, world coming to an end type situation. And honestly, we both pretty much see things the same way on that. If it comes down to that, you're probably dead anyway. So that's probably going to be the least of your worries, is putting back seeds, I have to tell you.
And if I might adjunct to that as well, there's also canning food. Now, I do sales from the cabinet. Now, seed banking, I would say for 99.9%, maybe even 100%, that's not the way we need to go. Canning is, I think, the next one down. Now, my wife grew up homesteading. She grew up on a 5-acre farm.
Right,
and
right.
They lived in northwest Washington State.
My family did too.
Yeah, and they canned. That was what they did.
Right.
But we live in the suburbs. I remember when I first got into prepping, I mentioned to my wife about, let's try canning. She literally laughed at me. She goes, David, you have no clue what that involves, and that the proper tools you need in most suburban home kitchens are not meant for canning. So if you have that ability, great. But you're going to see a lot about stuff on TV and YouTube about canning, and unless you have the very specific time and tools and space
No, I agree with you. I grew up on a farm. My grandparents, they were homesteaders. That's what they did. Lived in the same farmhouse for what 52 some odd years, and that's what they did every year. They would have a garden, and they would put back can after can and jar after jar of green beans and tomatoes and whatever. And I mean, they would have food stocked up for the winter. I don't think it's really practical for most people. Like you said, the equipment needed, and it's not one of those things that you can really just jump into. You kind of have to know what you're doing, and it comes with experience of doing it. And a lot of people that start canning, their first few batches that they do, they spoil. They don't turn out right. The seals aren't good on the jars, and for whatever reason, they didn't do things right, and they end up losing a bunch of stuff. So I think if you're set up that way, and if you have the facility to do it, and you have the people that will sit down and show you how to do that, great. For most of us, I'd say a good 90% of us, is probably not our best bet. Now, that being said, we had talked about in our show preps, we had talked about the Mormons and the way they go about. Around here, we do have some Mormons that live around here, and you can go there, and for a small fee, basically you pay for the cans. And they will go in and they will allow you to, I've already checked into this, they will allow you to use their equipment, and they will show you how to do it yourself, and all you have to do is pay for the cans, and they will let you can your own stuff and show you the proper way to do it. But that's not available to everybody. But if you have something like that available in your area, if you do have Mormons in your area, that's one of the things I really agree with them on. They are very much preppers by design. So
well, yeah, I think it's one of the lesser known traits about Mormons. Being someone like myself, I'm a practicing Catholic, and I do not know a whole lot about Mormons besides some of their basic tenets. And I watched the documentary on them, and it showed I'm not sure if it's so much a seed bank, but their food storage they have out in Utah, I believe, and how it's like embedded into their belief system.
right.
And I submit to you, they are the original preppers.
Oh yeah.
So Jack, you're very right. If you do have Mormons in your area that have such a setup where they will teach you how to can, even if you're not going to be doing it just to be able to learn that, if one day you are set up to do that, go do it. I mean, it's a great skill. Or my wife just tells me, yes, it works, it's great, but you really do have to have the right kind of set up to do it. Because like you said, Jack, food is spoiled quickly.
And it's a lot of work. It really is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
But I think next thing down on our list is what most people are going to be concerned with, and that's going to be food for your bug out / get home bag. And yeah, we've already been over the bugging out versus evacuating. I would consider this more of a get home bag. This is a bag that you're going to have in your car. For those that didn't catch the first two podcasts, this is a bag basically you're going to have in your vehicle, you're going to have in your car, you're going to take with you. And if something should happen, you have enough food preps in this bag to last you maybe 2 to 3 days and get you home. And I think I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube talking about that. And some of the stuff that people are putting in these bags is just ridiculous. They're putting perishable goods in the bags. They're putting stuff that has chocolate in it in the bags. And I don't know where these people live that it's never above the point where chocolate melts in their trunk. But you try that here in Tennessee, and I know especially in Florida, you're going to have a mess on your hands. So you have to. I think you really need to sit down and kind of weigh what you're going to put in there versus the well, to begin with, stay away from anything that's perishable. Let's just put that out there right now. Stay away from anything that's gonna that's got a week or two life in a trunk of a car. You can get by with certain things like beef jerky or whatever, but you're gonna have to rotate that stuff. And I think
Every 6 months.
right,
Even though the expiration's over a year,
it doesn't matter.
I do keep beef jerky in my get home bag, and like 6 months.
Rotate it every 6 months. Yep.
In the summer, I'd even make it cut it down to 4 or 5 down here in
I would normally I would rotate my stuff about once every 3 months, and I know that's a little premature, but I'll be honest with you, I have put some bars and some nuts and some other things in my get home bag, and honestly, after about 2 months in the trunk of a car, they start to taste kind of funny. They're not spoiled, and they're still a viable food source, but they don't really taste like they're supposed to anymore either because of the heat. And so I think you really need to pay attention to what you're going to be putting in there, and don't go crazy with the food preps in the get home bag. This is a bag that's designed to last you at most, what, 72 hours at most.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Jack, I think you hit it on the head there. 7 hours at most. I think, and again, like you said, you and I, we like to eat. I'm not one to sit here and preach to folks about not eating, but I think, and I was at Patriot Nurse's class 2 weeks ago, and she went over this, is that a lot of our eating, as far as what we think we have to have, is psychological.
It is.
I don't need 3 huge meals a day.
Right.
I don't. You need calories to sustain yourself, but you don't need to eat all this food. And if you're talking about food for your bug in, I'm sorry, for your bug out or your get home bag, what I would focus on there is something that is not perishable. That you have tested yourself, you've ate this, and that's going to involve no prep. And I would just say that again, kind of circling back to that you can realistically eat, because in a time of where you're using this bag, when you have to use your bag, you're already going to have more induced stress upon your body, having to hike home or get out somewhere.
Right.
And your mind and your stomach, you can look it up on anything, is very connected. If you then introduce a foreign food you've not accustomed yourself to, or God forbid is spoiled, we've all had food poisoning at home. We know how unpleasant it is just in the comforts of your home. Imagine dealing with those various upsets while you're trying to hike it somewhere. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
So I would really get down to the most very basic food items that you would just need for caloric intake. I would really make this a real minimalistic approach.
And don't shy away from your high calorie foods. The higher calorie, the better. You're talking about, if you're talking about hiking, if you're talking about being broke down or stranded 10, 12 miles from home, you're going to need some calories. You're going to need some high calorie, which means high fat content, high calorie content foods. Stay away from I understand we're all trying to lose weight and we're all trying to get thinner. Now is not the time to be on a diet. You need calories, and you need the most calories you can get in the smallest possible amount of space it's going to take up in your bag. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that you don't want to stock stuff in your bag that's going to give you digestive problems that you're not used to, that you haven't tried. Your first time, I know these are little life raft, what they call life raft bars or whatever. They're very popular, and there's nothing wrong with them. They're very calorie dense. I think one little brick will last the average person a day. They're very calorie dense, and from what I've heard, I've never personally tried one. From what I've heard, they're not that bad. But the thing is, if you have never tried one in your life, being in an emergency and having to make your way home with all the stress you're talking about is not the first time you need to be trying this food source out. It's just not. You don't know what kind of reaction you're going to have to it. I know me personally, I have a very, very negative reaction to certain artificial sweeteners, like Splenda is one of them. I cannot be anywhere around Splenda. If you dip a spoon in coffee that has had Splenda in it, I'll have diarrhea for 3 days. And I know that's nasty, but I mean, it's just a fact. And if you stocked up on food bars and you put 10 or 12 of these little bars in your get home bag, and they have Splenda in them, guess who's going to be in a bad way after about 30 minutes?
And also, Jack, I think we add to those. If you want to see an example of those, I call them life wrap bars, those food ration bars. Y'all go to the Urban Prepper. Go to his YouTube page. He did about a year ago. We did like a 3 or 4 day test. That's all he had. So, and that's him being in the comforts of his home and his
Right.
house. You can watch that series. But also, want to be careful when you're thinking of foods that you're keeping in your bag. And I'm guilty of this firsthand. You're already going to have to be chugging water. You can't live without water. So I would steer away from foods
steer away from the high salt content stuff.
Exactly. And those life rep bars will, and Jack, too, you said about food allergies. That's very important. I have a wheat allergy, which makes, that's, if you talk about prepping and having a wheat allergy, good luck. It gets very difficult. So I can't have anything that has wheat in it, and a lot of things with soy. So make sure, again, if you do have a food allergy, food you're stopping away, both in your bag and in your home preps, that's food you can eat. So I would say the basic two things is keep it simple and make sure you can eat it.
Exactly. Exactly. I'd like to add to that, don't forget to rotate your water more frequently than you do your food. Your food, you might be able to get 6 months out of your food that's in your get home bag, but your water, you don't need to be letting bottles of water sit in your car for more than just a little while. I mean, I would say rotate them weekly if you can. Rotate your bottles of water weekly. After about a month, yeah, maybe you could drink it. I wouldn't really recommend it. I really wouldn't.
I do, yes, if you're using store-bought bottles.
Store-bought bottles, right.
What I have in my truck is, you get this at Walmart, it's a 7 gallons of potable water. It's made for camping. It's a big blue container, BPA-free.
Right.
Great, whole 9 yards. I filled it up with tap water. That's been in my truck for almost 3 months now, so it's about due for rotation. And that's water I'm only drinking if the crap gets banned out stuff somewhere in my truck.
Right.
So, I too, especially in Florida, will not allow bottled water in my car more than a day because of the heat.
It's not worth it.
I get the overarching thing. If you've got to drink it to survive, it's better to get sick than to get dehydrated.
Right.
And die. But if you're in any kind of common sense situation or normal situation, you need to be rotating that water because that's the thing about water. It's not going to spoil.
Yep.
Even the water that I store away inside my home in a dark, cool place. We have one of those water coolers in my house, and our water truck was a few days late, so I had to use one. Because the tap water we live is not optimal, and the water was safe to drink, but it definitely had more of a taste to it. It's been sitting in a plastic.
It has that stale plastic taste to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. It's going to keep you alive. I'm not saying go extreme.
In an emergency, in a real life or death, I drink this or I'm going to die emergency. Yeah, you could do it, but it's not optimal, and I would definitely recommend rotating your water supply out more than you do your food supply, and be realistic about what you carry. Like David said, we both like to eat, but be realistic. Something enough calories that can get the average person by for about 3 days. You should be fine in a bug out / get home bag. That being said, like you said, David, a lot of times we eat for comfort. We don't necessarily eat because we're starving. We're hungry. We need calories. The average person can make it just fine. It'll be uncomfortable, but the average person, I think, can make it just fine off 1,500 to 2,000 calories a day, and you'll be able to make it home. Now, keep in mind though, you're going to be under stress, and you're going to be hiking, and you're going to be walking. You're going to be expending a lot of energy, so you might want to kick in a few more calories just for that. But honestly, I mean, if you look at my body type and you look at yours, we could probably make it a few weeks without eating anything and be all right. That's a whole show in itself. Right. Right. I think that kind of brings us down to as far as storing food goes. What do you store at your home? Do you how do you break down your personal food preps at home, David?
This is what I think can be the most beneficial to anybody listening to me. The average Joe saying, "What can I do to keep extra food in my house?" Again, to what I said at the beginning, my food preps are 3 tiers. The food we have inside my house that we eat every day, canned food storage, and then dehydrated food storage. Take out dehydrated and canned food for a second. If there's food you eat, I am very opposed, unless you have to the European style of food shopping. I say since my brother lived in Europe for 3 years, and I would do this. They go to the market every day. Now that's the culture over there. Here in America, we are blessed to have different options. For me and my wife, we buy in bulk from Costco. We pretty much eat the same things every week, so my wife buys in bulk. So naturally, without even getting to my food storage, we have 2 to 3 weeks of food just in our pantry alone.
Right.
So half of it.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife will say throughout the year, David, go out in the garage and get me a can of this, get me a can of that for whatever she's making. Half of it I don't eat, half of it's I use like canned chicken and spam, stuff I'm not going to eat if I don't have to, but it's there if I need to. What I do is, for my current assessment, my high risk is hurricane season, which is June to November. Come Christmas time, I take out the food that's fixing to expire that I know we're not going to eat and give it to the homeless shelter. So that's kind of how I rotate that. And then lastly is my dehydrated food.
Mm-hmm.
And just quick disclaimer: we are not sponsored by anybody nor paid by anybody. I personally use foodinsurance.com, and they're just a broker. It's actually through Daily Bread out in Utah, somewhere out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on this program. It's like a 2-year program. You pay so much a month, and you get 2 cans of dehydrated food shipped out to you a month. And at the end of the 2 years, I think you have a 2-week supply for a family of 4, and it's 4 grown adults. So that's my really, crap hits the fan.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of my 3-tier pronged approach that I do.
I think that's a really good common sense approach to it. I think people get carried away a lot of times, and they go out and they when they think food preps and food storage, their mind automatically goes to MREs and stuff along those lines. Let me tell you guys, if you've never eaten an MRE, they're not the most pleasant, most appetizing thing you can put in your mouth. You take an MRE that's been sitting on the shelf for 5 to 7 years. It's edible and it's calories, and it probably won't make you sick, but it is not pleasant. It is not. Talk to anybody that's been in Iraq, Afghanistan, anybody that's had military service, and ask them about how good the MREs are. They're very high calorie. They're very high sodium. They're not the best thing out there. They're really not. Now, if you want to talk about shelf life, if you absolutely think you have to put back, go ahead and get you a case of 12 MREs and have those put back. If you absolutely think you have to, if it makes you feel better and it gives you the warm and fuzzies inside, go do that. But for most of us, I think we'd be better served with, like you said, having our pantry stocked. That way we have at least a 1 to 3 week supply of food in our home should the shit hit the fan. And then, in addition to that, having your canned goods and your dehydrated foods. Mountain House, like David said, we're not sponsored by anybody, so we're not pushing anybody's product here. Mountain House just happens to be a brand that I'm familiar with and have eaten before, and so I can attest that they're very good as dehydrated food goes. They're not the cheapest thing around. They are going to set you back a little bit. But most of their stuff has anywhere from a 5 to a 20-year shelf life, I believe. So I mean, if you go that route, you're going to have some really long-term food storage. Like you said, your canned goods. Something about your canned goods a lot of people don't realize. Don't go by the expiration date on the can. It may say that it's good until 2017, but that would be under ideal conditions. If you had this can in a cool, and by cool I mean 50-degree dry environment, it might be good for 3 to 5 years, maybe. You put that same can of food in on a shelf, and it's moist and hot and wet, 115-degree temperature down in southern Florida. That food is not, I hate to tell you, that food is not going to be good in 2 years. It's just not. So you might want to rotate that more often, given your environment, and taste some every once in a while. Every once in a while, pull out some of those cans and try it out and get an idea. Open them up and see if it's spoiled or see if it still looks right. Get an idea, and it's going to be a trial and error thing, but at least you'll get an idea how long you can reasonably expect certain foods to keep, given your personal environment. What may be good. If you live in Michigan, what may be good for 5 years up there may last David, 6 months in Florida to a year.
And really, mine, with a few rare things, mine's rotated yearly because my canned food is stored in my garage, and while it's dark, it gets hot.
I think yearly would probably be about right, and that might even be pushing it in certain circumstances.
Because I have found some food when I do my clean outs, and you gotta look for what's called botulism, whatever it is, when the cans look expanded. You guys, you really have to.
And that's not something you want to mess with either.
We've all made, when I first started prepping, some of the things I put back was ridiculous, okay? But you
I'm telling you, food poisoning is no fun.
I mean, you imagine you have it when you have plumbing in your house. Imagine having it when no plumbing in your house. I mean, just I don't need to say
It's horrible. Let me tell you about you want to talk about food poisoning? I can tell you about Subway over here on Willow Avenue. Stay away from that place. That stuff will mess you up. So it has put me down. You know, I consider myself a pretty healthy individual, a fairly robust guy, and I have gotten food poisoning twice in the past 10 years, once at a Chinese restaurant and once at Subway, and it put me down for about 6 days. About 3 days where I couldn't get off the toilet and couldn't stop throwing up, and then about another 3 to 5 days before I actually had enough strength to function. So it will mess you up. You really need to be, you know, people joke about the water, like in, you know, you go to Mexico, people joke about don't drink the water, but that's true. It is a shock to your system. And I'll tell you another thing. I've been to Florida, down around your parts a couple of times, David, and I have drank the water there and got sick from it.
the water here is where you live, the part of the country you live in. The water is much better. The water we have here, it's just not that great.
It's got sulfur in it.
Yeah, I don't. I use the water we have here for just hand washing. We use it for some cooking, but like I said, we actually have like a water cooler that you would have in like an office with a big jug.
Right.
We have that at my house. That's our drink.
Right. And like
Not drinking filtered water.
right, and like you said, you know, we could do a whole nother show on filtered water. Excuse me. The last thing I'd like to cover as far as that goes, as far as food storage goes, is like I said, your long-term food preps. And you know, if like I said, if you want to go out and get your mountain house, your MRE, stuff like that, that's fine. A much cheaper alternative to that, if you just want to go out and buy 20 or 25 pounds of beans, 25 pounds of white rice, that's some good long-term food storage right there. If that makes you feel good doing that, and you have the location to do it and you have the equipment to do it, the best way I have seen to prepare those, and don't just go out and buy a bag of rice and throw it in one of these little plastic tubs. You can do that and you might be able to get away with it short term, but that's not what that's for. You're talking long-term food storage here. If you really want it to last, the best method I have seen for this, and if I can find the channel I've seen this on, I'll link to it, but the best method I've seen for it is buying 20 to 25 pounds, putting them in food grade buckets sealed in Mylar. Now you take all your grain, you put it in your Mylar bags, and then they iron the top of it shut with oxygen absorbers in it, and you put that in your food grade bucket, and make sure it is a food grade bucket. It'll be marked as such on the bottom. You can get them from bakeries, you can get them from your restaurants. If it's not a food grade bucket, what you're going to have is wax and chemicals leach in from the bucket to your food, and that's not good to eat. You don't want to do that. You can actually poison your food supply that way. Make sure it is food grade buckets, and like I said, seal it. It's oxygen tight. You'll be good to go. Now keep in mind, if you're in an area where you have rats and mice, they can chew through those buckets like they're not even there.
Or smaller. You're talking, so here in Florida, you're talking any kind of bugs, roaches.
They can get in it. Yep.
You have to keep your stuff sealed up.
You have to keep it sealed, and you have to do it right. So if you are going to do long-term food storage such as your beans and rice, make sure you do your research on it and make sure you do it the right way. And what I would recommend doing is when it's not a shit hit the fan type situation, I would recommend doing maybe 2 different plots of it, and then after about 5 years maybe pulling one of them out and checking it and see if it spoils, see if there's bugs, whatever, and you'll know if you did it right, and then go from there. But don't just assume that because you put this food back, in 10 years it's going to still be there and be good.
And
So
even that, I mean, my rice, Jeff, I think when I first started doing long-term preps in 2012, I might have one thing of rice I still have there. But even that, I just cycle it out. I really do. You know, you can buy sushi from the store, 5-pound bags.
it's better to be safe. It's better to be safe than sorry.
You know, why would you keep a $5 bag of rice for 10 years?
Why risk it?
So
You
my
know?
idea thing, I think for the 95% of people listening, you're saying, okay, well, I understand the stock kitchen, I understand the canned foods, but what do I need for that long-term food storage? For that, it really shit hits the fan, I'm going to need to have some calories.
Excuse me.
Left. I would go the route that I have gone, where you
They
cheaper
they
than
they have the
than
number 10 cans and everything. Yeah.
and you're a little bit of that's you're getting a little bit of a warm and fuzzies there, which that's okay. We're human beings. That's what we enjoy.
Right.
Is peace of mind and comfort. But that's about for most people. That's as far as
As
I
far
would
as
go.
I would take it, I'd have to agree with you there. I think that's about as far as I would take it. Being realistic, and that's what we're all about, is keeping it real, being realistic with our preps. And I think for most people, that's going to be about as far as they need to take any type of long-term food storage. Anything further than that, and you're looking at, like I said, you're looking at a homestead situation. You're looking at a whole different ball game. And if you want to, you want to talk about homesteading, I'm sure they have podcasts on that. That's not what we're about here. We're about prepping. We're about shit hits the fan situations. Homesteading's a whole different ball game in and of itself. I will say, as far as you were talking about Costco, where you're at, around here at Sam's Club, and you can go to Sam's Club, or for that matter, if you're brave and you feel frisky, you can go to Walmart. And you can get, I mean, if you catch some sales, you can find some stuff for dirt cheap, and it's edible. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the greatest stuff out there, but it's edible. And, if you go in and you buy one and it's stuff you like to eat, just buy two or three. If you catch it on sale, stock it back. Even if it's something that's going to be a perishable item that's only going to last a year or so, you still have that many extras, and you didn't spend a whole lot of extra money. My wife and I will go into the local Walmart here, and they have a little rack. As soon as you walk in, they'll have this little rack pushed out, and it's clearance items, clearance, marked down, reduced, whatever. And sometimes they'll have stuff that's normally like $4 or $5. They'll have it for 59 cents, maybe $1. And I mean, it's stuff that you're going to use anyway. Go ahead and get it. I mean, and this is not exactly a food stuffs, but the other day we went there and there was a toothbrush. They had these Oral-B toothbrushes, and they had them marked down from like $3.50 to like 49 cents. So I just went ahead and got like 6 of them. Why not? Why not? You're going to need them. But I mean, you just little stuff like that. Keep your eyes open, and you'd be surprised some of the deals you can find. And just go ahead and stock up, and you're not out of, at the end of the month, if you do this weekly, at the end of the month, you got enough extra food to last you maybe an extra week.
And that's the thing. I think a fully stocked kitchen, as you and I have discussed, buying in bulk, BOGOs, being buy one get one when you see that sale. Having a fully stocked kitchen is gonna last your family during most realistic emergencies. The issue of perishable foods in certain parts of the country, sick food outside, you can't do that down here. But I would submit to you that if people do that, they will probably never get to the situation where they have to touch their long-term food storage unless it's a national catastrophe.
Right.
So really stay away from that European model of food buying where, I just go to the store after work.
The market. Right.
It's just inefficient. You're going to spend more money, and it's just inefficient.
Well, and the thing is, it's great if you can do it. If you can go to the local farmers market when you get off work, and you can buy all your food fresh, and you can get your milk straight out of the cow. Yeah, that's awesome. If you can get all your food that fresh and that, but let's get real here. That's not the way most of us are set up, and you shouldn't live your life around being able to do that. And like we said in the first podcast, I firmly believe if Walmart shut down, and a shit hits the fan scenario, if Walmart shut down and McDonald's shut down, 80% of the people around here would starve to death.
It's true.
It's ridiculous.
We are an ATM society. We go in and it's
I get it right now.
when it doesn't spit out, it's like, what the hell's going on?
One meal at a time. One meal at a time.
And I would just, it's just that I think anybody listening that, is saying, okay, how do I start this? Would agree that is not a way to live your life, especially if you have a family and kids.
Agreed.
You don't live one little thing at a time. Stock up, and you're gonna save money, save time, and have a lot more peace of mind.
And if you ever want to know where you're at right now as far as you are with your preps, if you're just getting started in this, ask yourself this question: if tomorrow all the stores around you were closed and you could not buy, sell, or trade, how uncomfortable would you be after a week? And if you can't, and I'm talking about with the electricity still being on at your house, with everything else being the same, but you cannot buy, sell, or trade anything, any goods or services, where would you be in a week? Where would you be in 2 weeks? Where would you be in 3 weeks? I think most people would be highly uncomfortable after about 3 or 4 days. And I think there's very few people that I know that would be okay after 2 weeks. I really don't think they would be because
agree 100% on that 2 week mark.
so last thing, I want to kind of, well, next to the last thing here, a lot of people will overlook alternative food sources, and what I mean by that is such as protein powders, meal replacement shakes, and stuff like that. Now, me personally, I work out every day with the weights. I teach jiu-jitsu 3 days a week. I know David's in the gym every chance he gets, and it's not always feasible for me to fix a full meal and carry my food with me and sit there and eat it out of a Tupperware container in the gym parking lot. So that being said, that's where your protein shakes and your meal replacement shakes and stuff like that will come in. But let me say this: a lot of people think they're really expensive, okay? And when you're looking at a 2-pound tub of protein powder, and it says, it's $40. That seems really expensive. It does. It seems really expensive. But consider that you can mix a scoop of this with water and have a full meal. You're getting like 40 to 50 servings out of this. So when you actually you sit there and you do the math, and your cost per calorie, it's actually not that bad. I have a whole pantry full of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I eat it, and it's there. My wife will make a protein shake every now and then. We're one of those fancy blenders, but that's my plan because of my food allergies. I can't eat a lot of.
That's a really good alternative for you.
That's again. I got plenty of weight to lose. We've got to rough it for about 5 days. I'm gonna use some of that protein powder before I start breaking into some of that food.
Oh yeah, and you can. And I have right now, I'd have to say right off the top of my head, I probably got 13 to 15 pounds of protein powder and meal replacement powder in there. If I had to live off that, now don't get me wrong, I wouldn't want to live off of it, but if I had to, I could live off that for at least a week and a half. And something else I would recommend as far as that goes, if you can get your hands on a meal replacement, I would recommend that over just a straight protein powder. Your body needs carbohydrates, fats, and protein. If you're taking straight protein powder all the time, you can develop a conditioning known as protein poisoning. Basically, people that are out in the wilderness and all they're eating is fish and rodents and squirrels and stuff like that, they can develop this condition. It's not pleasant. So I'd recommend the meal replacement powders over just a straight protein powder, and you'll have your 30 or 40 grams of carbohydrates, 30 grams of protein, maybe 10 to 15 grams of fat, and it's meant to be a full meal replacement. You also get a lot more calories in those. So you're looking at, in your straight protein powder, maybe 200 calories per scoop if mixed in water. With your meal replacement, you're looking at something like 400 to 450 calories per scoop. And if you're in a shit hits the fan type situation where you're having to do everything manually, and you're having to walk great distances you're not normally used to, and do things around your house manually that you're not used to doing, you're going to be burning a lot of extra calories. There's not going to be any sitting around on your computer playing with your iPad, no Candy Crush, anything like that. You're going to be doing stuff, and you're going to be physical, and you're probably going to be more physical than you're used to being on a daily basis. So you're going to need, your calorie needs are going to be a lot higher than what you think.
And also, Jack, two things I want to throw in. I know one of these we'll touch on more when we do a show on more of like a medical prep. But is to store, you need to store vitamins and any kind of nutritional supplements that aren't going to perish quickly. Because say we're just shoving protein powder out, or say we're just shoving canned food down, you're probably not. I mean, the average American, I know I don't get what I should get every day in the proper vitamins and nutrients.
Right.
But it'd be even worse in a situation like a situation where having to use all your stored food is to find some kind of vitamin that sits well in your stomach, some kind of a nutritional supplement to help get those vitamins. You're not going to probably get to through all your stored food. One big thing is this, people forget this, and some of my issues, I take this daily, is find a probiotic that works for you. And you look at basically a probiotic replenishes the good bacteria inside your stomach.
Right.
Depends on this, but I cook all day, and I do have a grill. I do have a propane grill in my garage. But absent of that, what I have done is I have a Coleman camping stove. I have got probably 20 of the little propane bottles that go with it, and that's how I plan to cook my food prep. Should we have no power for 2 months?
Right.
That's in my little kitchen. So I forgot to mention how I plan to cook the food. Through first my grill, exhaust my propane, and then go to my camping stove.
That's good. Sounds like a good plan. And if worse come to worse, learn how to start a fire. I mean, you would be surprised the people that you talk with and you think they're pretty leveled and they cannot start a fire to save their life. There's going to be times you're going to need that. And I think the last thing that we probably need to talk about here, and it's probably one of the most overlooked aspects of food storage, as far as let's be realistic about it, is in a shit hits the fan type situation, especially one that's kind of a protracted thing that 2 to 3 weeks without food, maybe a month, there's going to be a lot of people and they're going to be real hungry and they're going to be willing to do whatever they have to do to eat. You don't want to be the person that looks like they have plenty when everybody else is starving, and you also don't want to have to give up all of your food for everybody else who wasn't smart enough to prepare. So, and I'm not trying to be mean about it or anything, but it comes down to this. There's my wife, my daughter, and myself. And if it means everybody in my area is starving to death that my family may eat, then that's how it's going to be, and that's how it's going to be, and I'm keeping my food. So you need to be careful who you tell, how much you talk about what you have, especially in your area, in your little neighborhood, whatever. You don't really need to be going around, bragging about, hey, I got 6 months worth of food and I got a year's worth. We could not have any more supplies right now. My family would live good for 6 months. You do that and you're setting yourself up, because later when everybody starts to get real hungry, neighbor Billy Bob over here is going to be talking. I was talking to David up the road there, and he told me a long time ago he had 6 months worth of food put back, and I don't see him and his family in the FEMA lines every day either. So what's up with that? So kind of keep that in mind. You don't really want to have to, me personally, I don't want to have to shoot somebody to protect my food stores. I will, but I don't want to have to do that. So, use a little common sense. Be careful who you tell. A couple other things. Don't carry your trash out every day. If everybody's hungry and nobody has any food, but you have garbage bags out here on the corner every day full of foodstuffs, and people are going to be rummaging through garbage cans, and they're like, look at this, we hadn't had any food, hadn't been any stores open for a month, and David has, there's ramen and there's all kinds of Mountain House. What is this? I bet he's got food put back in there. So be careful what you do with your trash. I would recommend if you have kind of a private location, you can take it out back and burn it, or if you have a garage or whatever, burn your trash. Don't take your trash out so it's not obvious. If the FEMA lines, if it gets to that point and you have the FEMA food lines, go stand in the line. You may not need the food, but if you're the only ones not standing in line, it's going to be real obvious that you and your family have some type of preparation. Last thing I'd recommend along that line, if somebody does break into your home looking for food, have a little bit. Have 5 or 6 cans of green beans and corn in your cabinet, something that's maybe expired, something that you don't really care to part with, whatever. But have a few cans of I guess theft insurance food in your house that they can actually see that they will steal, and have your other stuff put back. Have it put back in the crawl spaces, under your house, in your attic, wherever, but have it put back. But leave something there for him to get, you know what I mean? A little bit of bait for him to get, so they don't think, well, he's got all his food put back. No, we stole all the food that he had. Does that make sense?
It does. And I told you, Jeff, I feel like I personally have shared too much about my preps with people. Which I kind of go back and forth whether I reptilian or not, being the community that I live in. But I think it goes back to this, because that, don't keep all your stuff in the same place. It's like, keep your expensive jewelry hanging in the front window.
Right.
You have some common sense about where you keep your food. Second off, you get a very good point of having disposable food to get rid of should you need to. Somebody's wanting food.
bury it, burn, whatever you have to do. You have a few items, somebody comes to you to borrow something. Listen, man, I got like 6 cans of food left, but I'll give you one, but this is it. And you can bring them in if you have to and show them that's all you got, you know.
And they might, I've seen some too, they say, well, waste of food. I just don't think that's Christian-like or good to do for anything. But yeah, just have some food that maybe is expired at most that you can get it with. And I think thirdly, if you have the ability to, if you have people around you that are like-minded, get your neighbors involved in being prepared. And that's going to limit the amount that you have to worry about someone coming after your food.
Right.
And that's not for everybody, but if you have the ability to talk to your neighbors and get them involved, then you're going to have, there's strength in numbers. And almost every podcast that we do, we can bring that theory in, that the more people you have of the same mindset working together, the better your results are going to be. But we know, sadly, I think for a lot of people, that's just not the case. So definitely, keep close to your chest. What you have, don't advertise it. Don't keep it in one place, and then have something to give away.
That sounds good. Sounds like a good place to wrap up. Appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to have a link down below if you would like to actually subscribe to the podcast. We're going to have links below. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and go to our page. See what we have to offer. We're just getting started, so we only have like 3 or 4 videos up right now. But our audio is going to get better. Our video is going to get better. I promise. This is a work in progress. Don't forget to go to our Facebook page, and don't forget, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. We love to answer stuff like that. Email us or make a comment on our Facebook, and we will try to get back to you.
Absolutely, yeah. Just basically, don't forget, we get to 100 likes on Facebook, which we're almost halfway there.
Mm-hmm.
We get to 100 likes on Facebook. We are doing a gear giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have any questions, email us, comment on Facebook or YouTube. We'll be sure to answer them. And we are, as Jack mentioned, we are now live on iTunes. So you can download the audio version of this podcast. All you got to do is launch your podcast app or launch your iTunes app on your Mac or your Windows, I guess, whatever it is you got, and then look for the Realistic Prepper. Just type it in, and it should pop right up, and you'll be able to download all of our podcasts. We film this usually on Friday, so I'll try to usually have the audio up by Monday or Tuesday.
All right, guys. Hope to see everybody here next time. Till then, see you.